Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen, Madam President, many thanks for your words of felicitation. And I too look forward to working very closely with you in the final months of your presidency and the preparatory months of mine. And I will definitely keep my promise of calling you, if necessary, middle of the night, football or no football. Excellencies, I'm truly honored to have the opportunity to make this statement as President-elect of 81st session of the General Assembly. At the outset, I would like to express my deep appreciation to the member states of the United Nations for the trust and confidence they have reposed in me. I accept the position of the President of the 81st session with humility and respect. I would like to thank my Prime Minister, Mr. Tariq Rahman, for nominating me for the position of the President of the UNGA and for supporting our campaign strongly and consistently. I would also like to express my appreciation to my countrymen for their support and my team and many friends around the world for their excellent contribution to our campaign. My family lovingly stood by me ever since my candidature was announced, and the time that we spent on the campaign trail was not easy. So they accepted their suffering with smile. Thank you. Last but not the least, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Ambassador Andreas Kakouris of Cyprus. Ambassador Kakouris, you led a very constructive campaign, a model campaign, which will be known to our member states for many, many years. I wish you well in your all future endeavors. Excellencies, as our current President has said very well, the 81st session of the Assembly will open at historic crossroads. The UN will commence its ninth decade at a time when trust in our organization is being tested on multiple fronts. Scourges of conflict and war, from which our organization aimed to save our succeeding generations, continue to inflict untold sufferings. Development gains remain fragile and uncertain, and in some cases are regressing. Despite advancements in human rights, we witness a general backsliding of certain rights and freedoms across the world and shrinking humanitarian space. All this is happening at a time when multilateralism has come under increasing pressure and our organization faces financial stress. Taken together, these challenges tend to undermine the public trust and confidence in the ability of our organization to deliver its promises. And this is a challenge that I will confront together with all of you. As I mentioned during the interactive debate, working with all of you, I envision addressing these challenges along 6 pillars of action. First, in advancing the organization's work on peace and security, I will draw inspiration from the work of more than 200,000 peacekeepers from Bangladesh who have contributed actively to international peace and security across the globe, from Cyprus to Sudan. Building on my country's experience, I would uphold the Assembly's moral and political authority and champion a holistic approach to peacekeeping and peace building that prioritizes prevention and political solution, strengthens peace building, and protects civilians. I will support dialogue to make even peacekeeping more fit for purpose and advocate for greater representation of women in peacekeeping. Excellencies, secondly, the 2030 Agenda is a major milestone in the work of the United Nations, but the gap between promise and delivery remains too wide. Ongoing energy insecurity has added a new layer of vulnerability for many countries, especially the Global South. As the International Energy Association recently said, the scope of the current energy crisis could be larger than those that we have seen in 1974 and 1979, which produced a lost decade of development for developing countries. I intend to work closely with member states on how we can prevent another lost decade of development and protect the vulnerable people in developing countries. On the implementation of Agenda 2030, with the SDG Summit 2027 in mind, I will work with you all to accelerate implementation of SDGs that are lagging or regressing. Building on the outcome of FFD4 and the Compromiso de Sevilla, I will encourage member states to address SDG funding gaps, fulfill commitments on debt sustainability, and pursue reform on international financial architecture. I'll be particularly mindful of achieving gender equality and full and meaningful participation of women and girls in all walks of life. I will also be attentive to the implementation of the Doha Program of Action for LDCs, ASWA Program of Action for LLDCs, and the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for the Seeds. Working with the member states, I will advance UN's cooperation with the African Union, particularly on Agenda 2063. Nearly 3/5 of global poor live in the middle-income countries, and often their problematic is glossed over in international discourse. Following up on a recent UNGA decision, I will convene a meeting to support the needs of middle-income countries during my presidency. Excellency, thirdly, on climate change, I will work with the member states on delivering on existing commitments, support operationalization of loss and damage fund, and protect biodiversity, oceans, and land. Against the backdrop of the ocean decade, I will advance initiatives to promote science-based ocean action and effective partnerships for the conservation of marine ecosystems. I'll facilitate discussions at the first conference of the parties to the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, BBNJ agreement due in January 2027. Excellencies, fourthly, I will uphold UNGA's work on human rights. I will work towards promoting synergy within and beyond UN human rights mechanisms through multi-stakeholder partnerships. I will lend full support of the Office of the PGA to the high-level meetings to mark the 25th anniversary of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action and the 40th anniversary of the Declaration on the Right to Development. I will underscore the importance of protecting humanitarian space and remaining attentive to refugees, migrants, and displaced communities whose vulnerabilities often miss the headlines. Bangladesh knows this in human terms, as you do, Mr. Secretary General, when you visited the Rohingya camps last year. And as we have been sheltering for years about 1.2 million forcibly displaced Rohingya nationals of Myanmar. I know it personally when I served as my government's high representative on the Rohingya issue. Excellency, fifth, emerging technologies including artificial intelligence, big data, and digital platforms bring immense opportunities, but also, like any new technology, they entail serious risks of inequality, bias, and misuse. The question is not whether we will use these technologies, we will, but how we will govern them wisely and fairly and equitably. Building upon the important work of our current PGA, and I thank you, Madam, for it, I will champion inclusive implementation of the Global Digital Compact. I will work with UN Youth Office to address youth employment with the advent of AI and other emerging technologies. Excellency, finally, we must collectively demonstrate that the UN can adapt, reform, and better deliver, and justify every penny member states, all of you, contribute in order to restore trust in our organization. The 80th anniversary of the UN, marked by the UN 80 initiative, for which I profoundly thank Mr. Secretary General, as well as the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations, have already charted an ambitious course for renewal of our organization. I will build upon these efforts and work with the member states toward making UNGA an engine of member-driven and member-owned reform. I will organize inclusive consultations to advance the ideas in shifting paradigms united to deliver, and remain invested in enhancing UNGA's coordination and synergy with Security Council, ECOSOC, and Peace Building Commission. Excellencies, as your president, I will dedicate myself to rebuilding trust, nurturing consensus, and opening space for good faith negotiations that will lead to outcomes for all that are owned by all. I will unfailingly uphold the UN Charter and conduct the work of the presidency in full accordance with the Code of Conduct of the President. And I ask you to hold me to account on this. I'll be president of all of you. I will engage all member states in the course of my work. I will not let my personal views interfere with my work as the PGA. I will seek common ground without ignoring differences. I'll organize my office reflecting geographical, gender, and linguistic balance, something I promised during my interactive debate, and I intend to keep this promise. Creating a group within the Office of the President to specifically serve the needs of the small delegations will be one of my early priorities. I will also hold consultations with the Secretary General on the organization resources for the Office of the President of the General Assembly. I call upon all member states to contribute to the PGA Trust Fund to help carry out the work of the Office of the President. I will work with all of you to ensure adequate long-term funding for a robust internship program. I will set up a dedicated communication team for effective outreach throughout my presidency. Finally, I don't consider the work of the President as one-off event, but as a continuum, and I made this point very clear during my interactive debate with you. Therefore, Madam President, I will carry forward your important initiatives. In the coming days, I will remain in close touch with you for a smooth transition of our responsibilities, as you have very eloquently mentioned in your intervention. I'll be at your beck and call. Whenever you need me, I'll be there, and we will work together to make sure that the transition this time is one of the model transitions. I thank you all.